From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
As the deadline looms to reunite migrant children with their parents, an Arizona lawmaker tours a facility where these children have been living.
Lawmakers prepare to head back to Congress after the holiday recess. Is there any chance the American people will see immigration reform get done?
And a tribute to Vietnam War veterans, giving Arizonans the chance to honor fallen heroes.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Sam Hoyle.
And I'm Karine Haro. Thank you for joining us.
Today, Congressman Raul Grijalva toured a detention facility in Tucson that houses migrant children. Some came into this country without parents and others were taken during the short-lived zero-tolerance policy at the border. Jordan Daphnis spoke to the lawmaker about the immigration crisis.
Representative Raul Grijalva says the living conditions at the Southwest Key facility in Tucson are good, but says the situation is still disheartening.
It's still gut-wrenching because there's these babies there, but young kids, and it's gut-wrenching in the sense that the frustration that many of us feel is that we are not doing what we need to do to unify them to their parents.
Grijalva says the facility houses 300 children. 79 of those have been separated from their parents.
It's all structured into former hotel rooms and some that have been retrofitted to so that the kids can be in there. It's a lockdown basis at night and open during the day.
Grijalva plans to continue to work on this issue when he returns to Congress Monday.
Continue to fight any overturn of the Florida's decision and continue to press for resources and continue to hold these agencies accountable.
Grijalva says there are efforts to reunite the separated children more quickly.
Those 79 kids are integrated with the other kids. There is efforts to expedite their unification. I think, the fact that it's going to be difficult.
In Tucson, Jordan Daphnis, Cronkite News.
From May 5th until June 9th, over 2,300 children were separated from their parents. The policy was then ended by an executive order. Health and Human Services is working to bring kids and parents back together.
A few parents have decided to sue immigration officials. They were separated from their kids when they tried to cross the border illegally. Their lawsuit centers around communication. In their federal court filing, the parents accuse immigration authorities of not ensuring enough communication between parents and children. They say they're having trouble getting in touch with case managers and haven't gotten any details on reunification plans. Those parents could be seeing some relief soon. Today is the first family reunification deadline set by a federal judge in California. By the end of the day today, officials are supposed to ensure every separated parent has a way to contact their children. This afternoon, the Trump administration asked a court for more time to make the next deadlines to actually reunite families. The first is Tuesday to reunite parents with children under 5. Everyone else should be reunited by July 26th.
On Monday, Congress returns from recess with a full agenda, but lawmakers have just 3 weeks to work until their next recess for the month of August. One issue that's not likely to be acted on is immigration reform. As Danny Colbert reports from our Washington bureau, legislation may not get done by the end of the year.
This was President Donald Trump on Thursday demanding in a tweet to Congress that it pass immigration reform now. But experts say chances are slim that a vote will happen before August, much less now.
Be a long-term struggle. It's definitely not going to be solved this year and definitely not in the next Congress, especially with this president who would veto a lot of bills that would have a chance of fixing it.
And it's not like Congress hasn't been trying. In the past 2 weeks, the Republican-controlled House rejected 2 GOP-backed immigration bills by increasingly large margins.
Particularly Republicans in Congress who have stated pretty clearly that, particularly Republican leaders, that they don't want to pass anything that they don't think the president is going to sign.
Even though the president has repeatedly blamed Democrats for the delay, the bills rejected by the House included funds for the proposed border wall and protections for DACA recipients. Items Trump has insisted should be in a bill. That party infighting does not bode well for a bill, analysts say.
They haven't been able to move on very small, politically sympathetic issues such as DACA or family separation. The idea that they could possibly take on immigration as a whole seems very unrealistic right now.
Narashta agrees, saying that the issue will likely still be around and unresolved long past the November elections.
I think this is going to be a long-term policy debate. I think it's going to be an issue that's going to be important in elections going forward, and it's going to be, unfortunately, a long time before politicians are able to solve it.
In Washington, Danny Coble, Cronkite News.
Congress has to approve the next budget in September to avoid a government shutdown. Earlier this year, President Trump said if the budget does not include funding for a border wall, he will not sign it.
The immigration debate is now reaching the armed services. According to an Associated Press report, the U.S. Army has been discharging immigrant recruits over the past few weeks. Many of these service members enlisted through a program that promised a path to citizenship. But some have been told they're now considered security risks because they have relatives abroad or because their background checks are still pending. The report says at least 40 enlistees have been discharged so far.
President Trump says he's narrowed down his list of potential Supreme Court contenders to just 2 or 3. The president is expected to announce his pick Monday evening. Justice Anthony Kennedy announced last week that he's retiring at the end of this month. He's been considered the swing vote on a deeply divided court.
Planned Parenthood is concerned over who the president will nominate. Demonstrations were held in cities across the country this week, including here in Phoenix. The executive vice president of the Planned Parenthood Action Fund says the Supreme Court nominee must respect precedent and believe in personal liberty.
We are calling for a personal liberty standard, that the Senate must only confirm a justice who affirmatively declares that they believe the Constitution protects individual liberty and the right of all people to make personal decisions about their bodies and their personal relationships.
The leadership at Planned Parenthood claims the president's choice could one day decide rulings that take away reproductive rights.
About 400 soldiers from the Arizona National Guard are preparing for an overseas deployment. The Guard will be sent to assist in Operation Spartan Shield. It's the first time in 10 years the Arizona National Guard has been deployed abroad, and it's still unclear where they'll be sent. Governor Doug Ducey will speak tomorrow at the pre-deployment ceremony at Wells Fargo Arena.
More than 58,000 people were killed in the war in Vietnam. Their names are displayed at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. For those who can't make the trip to the nation's capital, a traveling Vietnam memorial wall is in the valley this weekend. As Emily Richardson learned, visiting the wall is a sobering and emotional experience.
I'm at one of the Vietnam memorials that travel across the country, giving those who may not be able to make it to Washington, D.C. a chance to remember their loved ones.
When you see the name in print on the wall, it's quite a moving experience.
They can see that they're not forgotten and that their effort was not in vain.
Dennis Blessman and Mark Del Maestro have both been traveling with the wall to different locations for more than a decade.
We came back from Vietnam. The 58,318 names on the wall behind me, those young men and women did not come home.
They missed everything that life had to offer. Nothing you can do to bring them back. So all you can do is teach the lessons of their death.
Blessman volunteers at walls in California, Arizona, Nevada, and Idaho. He says he wants to make sure people know the history. He also says it helps people to see the names of the people they lost on the memorial.
A group of family members they found a name on the wall, and it was the first time they had ever seen the name on the wall. And one of the ladies was the mother. It was the son that they had found on the wall. She was in a wheelchair, and she must have sat by the wall with her hand on her son's name for at least 2 hours.
The moving wall is a replica of the Washington, D.C. memorial. It is half the size and has been traveling around the United States for more than 30 years. Both Blessman and Del Maestro have served in Vietnam and lost some of their friends. Coming to walls helps them deal with their losses.
When I first started doing this, it was pretty emotional. But now I've come to grips with my survivor guilt, and I've kind of dedicated my off time to be able to come here and do this.
The closing ceremony will be held on Monday, July 9th. In Surprise, Emily Richardson, Cronkite News.
For some, California seems like a great place to live. It's got a booming tech industry, the Pacific Ocean right in your backyard, and great weather.
But living in the Golden State does not come cheap. Coming up on Cronkite News, why more California families are packing up their bags and calling Arizona home.
40% of heat-related deaths happen inside a home. Is the Arizona summer too much for the houses we live in? How new research could change future construction.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. The 2018 election season has arrived. Join us for primary and general election debates. Right here, meet the candidates and hear their positions. Arizona Horizon, your source for what matters most this election season. Only on Arizona PBS.
ADOT's new wrong-way driver system detected its first wrong-way driver Thursday night. No one was hurt in the incident, and the driver was arrested on suspicion of DUI. It's been 6 months since the cameras were installed along the I-17, and the system includes 90 thermal cameras above exit ramps and the freeway main line from the I-10 stack to the Loop 101. It's designed to alert authorities when someone's going the wrong way so drivers on the road can be warned and state troopers can respond faster.
Living in the Golden State requires a lot of gold. Reporter Nia Rowan found out why some Californians are looking to get out.
Here, you don't have to be wealthy to live in a great neighborhood, to have your kids go to a great school, to have a really nice community, and not worry about, who's next door.
Shelby DiMasseri moved from California to the Phoenix area more than 20 years ago.
The price of housing was just so much better than it was in San Diego.
Throughout history, around the world, people have moved.
Within the past few years, moving from California to Arizona has been amongst one of the most popular. The latest Census Bureau data shows 138,000 people moved out of California. Arizona gained 63,000 residents.
People move to be closer to family, to look for jobs and opportunities, and they feel pushed out by the economy. And I do think that's the main factor that's happening.
And a USC Dorn Life Los Angeles Times poll confirms that. Finding the high cost of living, including housing, is the top concern for the state. Dina Rainey and her family live between Oxnard and LA. She says they have been debating on whether moving to Arizona would have better economic opportunities for them.
We went out to visit and loved it, and we're thinking very seriously about moving there. It just never worked out. So we ended up staying here, but we still talk about it. We talk about retiring there.
But moving out of state could mean less time with loved ones.
My family's pretty important to me, so I want to be able to see them, but then again, Arizona's not that far.
Marjorie Volstick-Oriana is a graduate professor at UCLA and associate director of the study of international migration. Volstick-Oriana says that the people who move are brave.
They're taking risks, tremendous risks. They don't really know what life will be like on the other side of any border, they don't really know what opportunities will exist, but they're seeking something because something isn't working for them where they are.
And moving doesn't mean you can't go back to visit.
I definitely feel like Arizona is more of a home, but I will forever say I'm from San Diego. I was born there and I love it.
And in Los Angeles, I'm Nia Rowan.
According to Trulia, Phoenix is the second most researched place for moving out of California, right after Las Vegas as #1.
Arizona summers are known for their brutal heat, and to stay cool, most people just stay indoors.
But even inside, you could still be at risk. Coming up on Cronkite News, new technology to keep you safe in case your AC can't take the heat.
We're tracking some big weather changes this weekend with some possible monsoon activity. I'll have all the details coming up.
I'm Matt Berry, ESPN Sports Center anchor and graduate of ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. With its bachelor's and master's degrees in sports journalism, the Cronkite School is preparing the next generation of sports journalists to tell stories that matter, stories that excite, inspire, and inform. Cronkite immerses students in covering sports at all levels in one of the country's top sports markets. It's this hands-on experience under the guidance of award-winning sports media veterans that shape the top journalists of tomorrow.
By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor Halden, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor Halden gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
We're 3 weeks into monsoon season, and Thursday we finally saw a staple weather event here in Arizona, dust storms. This is video people in the Southeast Valley shared on social media. The dust blew in around 4:30, seriously limiting visibility. It even forced the I-10 to close south of Casa Grande in both directions.
Thursday was also the hottest day of the year so far, but a little bit of rain did make it to Gila County.
Roger Ratley is in the Weather Center tracking monsoon 2018. So Roger, can we expect any of this rain in Phoenix soon?
Well, there is a chance for some rain in the forecast, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's take a look at our current conditions first. Right now it's 110 in Phoenix. Pretty breezy out there with some winds out of the east. Around the valley we see similar conditions, 111 in Glendale, 108 in Mesa. Around the state, Flagstaff saw a high of 86, Lake Havasu 113, and Tucson had a high of 103. Here in Phoenix, we had a high of 111, which was just above our average of 107 for this time of year. We did manage to avoid that record temp of 116 that happened back in 1942. However, we are still under an excessive heat warning until 9 p.m. tonight. So if you're going to go outside, please stay hydrated and slather on that sunscreen. As we head into the weekend, things will begin to change. Saturday, it's going to be partly cloudy with a high of 112. Sunday, mostly cloudy with a high of 109, and that's our best chance for rain. As we look at the rest of the work week, we see that it's going to be mostly cloudy, and we'll stay under we'll stay under our record temps. In the Weather Center, I'm Roger Ratley.
With Phoenix temperatures hitting 114 degrees during the summer, a power outage in Arizona would be catastrophic. Reporter Amanda Mason shows how these scientists are testing buildings under critical conditions.
Center are trying to find ways to reduce fatalities during a heat disaster. I visited the computer lab for heat simulations and climbed on top of the roof of one of the ASU's buildings to learn more about how scientists are testing technology. From actual building models to computer simulations, PhD candidate and research assistant Amir Banyasadi tests different structures and materials under critical conditions to find ways to protect people from a heat disaster where everyone loses air conditioning.
Most people find surprising is that, especially during extreme heat events, most of the victims die inside their homes.
In fact, in an average year here in Maricopa County, approximately 40% of the people who will suffer a heat-related death will have an indoor place of injury.
Since the research will impact human lives, it's important for Banyasadi to experiment in this building that sits on top of the university.
We use simulations to see how you can improve a building's resiliency to heat, and by that I mean make a building in a way that it takes a longer time for the building to reach those critical indoor temperatures.
Temperatures on the roof can reach 120 degrees. In order to be as realistic as possible, scientists place light bulbs inside the test building to mimic the heat generation of human bodies. And that means that 2 of these can roughly equal 1 person. And it only takes a few hours without AC on a hot day in the summer to reach life-threatening temperatures indoors.
Almost every case where we have a heat-associated death associated with an indoor place of injury, the air conditioning unit is found to be off or in some state of disrepair at the home.
Which is why Banyasadi is focused on cost-effective technology. He has seen a 15-degree decrease in temperature when homes are built with phase change material. Sheets of these capsules are placed in the dry wall. It absorbs the heat during the day, becoming liquid, and then turns back into solid form at night when it cools off. That technology is being tested in the simulation house, along with shading the roof with solar panels and other reflective technology. Continuing to study temperatures in homes around Maricopa County to help them find ways to improve community health. In the Broadcast Center, Amanda Mason, Cronkite News.
Esports has become one of the fastest growing industries in the world, combining technology, determination, and culture.
And it's turning into big business. Coming up on Cronkite News, how a casino goes from table games to video games.
Join us each week on Catalyst, the show that explores new advancements, technologies, and innovations at Arizona State University that are shaping the future for tomorrow and beyond. Catalyst, Wednesdays at 9, right here on Arizona PBS.
I like working for Cronkite News because it gives us the opportunity to find a different angle on the same stories that every other news outlet is covering across Arizona. As students, we have the opportunity to cover issues all across the state of Arizona.
It gives me a good chance to sharpen my skills, improve my skills, learn the techniques in a newsroom and in the programs and teamwork and technology, getting me prepared for the real world. And at the same time, I think we do a great job, make some great stories, do great journalism for the city of Phoenix and state of Arizona.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. Join us each weekday at 5:30 and 10 as we bring you the top newsmakers who impact the state. We cover the stories in depth that shape and affect our local communities, and we take the time to ensure that all voices are equally heard. For more than 30 years, Arizona Horizon has been your voice and your source for what matters most, right here on Arizona PBS.
The Phoenix Suns haven't made the playoffs in nearly a decade. Felipe Corral Jr. explains how the team's newest addition could help end that drought.
Suns general manager Ryan McDonough said today the team's ultimate goal is to make the playoffs next year. On top of the draft addition of #1 overall pick DeAndre Ayton, a key part of that goal in McDonough's eyes, Trevor Ariza. Today, the Suns introduced the 14-year veteran and NBA champion, signing him to a 1-year contract. Ariza recalled the guidance he received from Kobe Bryant at the early stages of his career. He wants to have that same influence on the Suns' young core.
You develop relationships. You come in and you just do your job. And sometimes you lead by example, sometimes it's words, but it's not one, it's not one way to lead. It's a whole bunch of different ways.
People talk about who that small forward is, that defender, shooter, playmaker, winner. They talk about guys like Trevor Ariza. And hopefully when our guys see that up close and personal every single day, and they have to compete on that level, it'll start to rub off and they'll start to see that that's what it takes to win.
As the Suns introduced the veteran this morning, the team's 4 draft picks will make their debut on the court tonight in the NBA Summer League in Las Vegas. In the Broadcast Center, Felipe Corral Jr., Cronkite News.
Esports continues to build a presence in Arizona. In February, the Fiesta Bowl hosted the Overwatch Collegiate National Championship. More recently, Super Smash Bros. Was featured in a tournament held at a venue eager to become the home of esports in the Valley. So I went to Talking Stick Resort to check out the growing competitive scene.
Nicholas Yingling is part of the growing fighting game community who competed in a recent tournament featuring popular game Super Smash Bros.
I competed in Super Smash Bros. Melee, which is a game for the Nintendo GameCube. It's like super old. It's 16 years old, and it's played on big junky TVs.
Talking Stick Resort has touted itself as Arizona's entertainment destination. Bringing esports to its list of offerings was a 3-year process that began in Las Vegas with the CEO of Ultimate Gaming, John Bukowski.
I met the current CMO, Miss Mary Schick of Talking Stick Resort at our activations in Las Vegas. and she wanted to know more and how could the Salt River Pima tribe get involved in esports and be the default leader in Arizona.
Talking Stick Resort and Ultimate Gaming collaborated to create Esports Arizona, putting Talking Stick Resort on the map as a destination spot for competitive gaming right here in the Valley, whose recent event attracted over 400 people and some of the top professional players from the Super Mario Smash Bros. Competitive scene.
If we're going to go into esports, we need to really claim it on the billboards, on the advertising, everywhere that we can. So that's how the name EAZ came up.
Nicholas has attended all 4 tournaments and has seen the growth at each event. As he looks to the future, he explains what keeps him coming back.
I think it's more of a pride thing. I think it's honestly less about the money and all that. It's like a pride thing. It's like hearing everybody say, "Let's go Nick, let's go Yingling," all that. That's maybe the fame, I guess, but I just like people supporting me and being on the stage and showing people I'm sick as hell at the game.
In Phoenix, I'm Gadi Nuharo, Cronkite News.
Talking Stick Resort will host its next esports tournament August 18th, partnering with Red Bull to present Conquest, featuring Street Fighter V and Tekken 7.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and the PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, it's the Journalists Roundtable. A measure to tax the state's top wage earners to help fund education moves closer to the ballot. Same thing for a measure that would increase the state's renewable energy standard.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, Dave Chappelle on his return to comedy. That's Friday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thank you so much for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.